Hey there, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us on this month's episode of the Work with Purpose podcast. I'm glad that you're here. I'm your host, Randy Mahoney Jr., and I want to welcome you on this month's episode. If you are new to our podcast, we are a seasonal career podcast, and the goal of each episode during the time that we're on our podcast season is that we really want to help you go from career confused to being more of a purposeful person. And I'll talk about that in a second, but move from career confused to being a purposeful person in the career aspect of your life and other aspects of your life as well. And we try to do all that by giving you advice, education, and encouragement for your career journey. And we try to package all that in about 20 to 30-minute episodes, again, while we're in our podcast seasons. So if you're new to our podcast, I want to welcome you again. Thanks for being with us here on this month's episode. As we get started into this month's topic, I'm excited to bring it to you. It's actually the start of a two-part series, and let me show this up on my screen. So today we're going to start to talk about your skills and abilities, part one. So I'm excited to kind of talk you through where we're going to go on this topic. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So as you're looking on the screen here, I want to say to you as well, if you are wanting to get some of this information and things like that, you can connect with our podcast. You can download and get connected with us in your favorite podcast app. We're on Apple and Spotify and things like that. But then also we have a YouTube version of our show, and that's we have a video version as well. You can find us on YouTube. Just search for the Work with Purpose podcast. All right, so getting right back into our topic, your skills and abilities, part one. The first place that I wanted to bring you on this topic was, really talking about the differences between skills and abilities. And the reason that I wanted to do that, as we kind of talk about this topic, is because, as long as I've been in the 8 years or so that I've been working with young adults and adults, teaching and training folks about career development skills, I realized that the word skills and abilities, that can kind of be synonymous, and they can kind of run together and almost kind of be sort of the same thing. But as I was prepping for this month's podcast episode and was really trying to think about what might serve you and help you as we start this conversation of talking about skills and abilities, I want to contend to you and suggest to you that that skills and abilities are actually there's some subtle differences between both of those words, and I want to kind of walk you through those real quick. So let's start with skills. When it comes to skills, I would say to you that a skill is in any area of personal growth, strength, or personal development that you have, and maybe you've worked on it over time and things like that. It could also even be you might have a skill in a certain technology tool or a software or certain processes or procedures and things like that. But in my opinion, as I've worked with folks on it over time on helping them in their career development, I would say to you that a skill, and this is why I put it, if you're watching the YouTube version of our show, I kind of bolded this on the slide that I put there, is that a skill, it might seem like something natural to you. It might seem automatic or things like that. But I would say to you that it's not necessarily that, but I would say to help you understand a skill, really think about what are those technology tools, those processes, those areas of growth that you have that it might just feel automatic to you. You might have a natural skill in those. So that's the first part with skills. And now on the opposite side of things, I want to talk to you about abilities. Abilities, I would say to you, are, again, similar to like I just talked with you about for skills, any kind of area of growth, development, things like that. But I would say the difference that makes an ability an actual ability is that you've had more specific, maybe more intentional training or education on that area of ability, if that makes sense as I'm kind of talking through it. So an ability, an easy way to remember it, is any type of professional growth or technology tool or process and things like that, but you've had more specific intentional training or education on those on that ability. So that's kind of the first part I wanted to start as we talk through skills and abilities. It could seem kind of maybe murky or kind of gray of a topic, but I wanted to get and start with some clear definitions to really try to help you work through this topic, just because as we go in later in this episode, I'm going to try to apply skills and abilities as I kind of walked you through here and give you some more examples of how skills and abilities might show up in a sample job to try to help you as well. And then I think we'll kind of wrap this up later in this episode with a new segment that we're trying in this season. I'll talk more about that in just a little bit. So if you're finding this podcast episode and this information helpful and encouraging to you, I do want to take a quick break and remind you before we get back to our show that if you want to stay up to date with everything that our podcast is doing, I do want to invite you to join our newsletter. We send out a newsletter. It's called the Career Catch Up. We send that out once a month during the time that we are in our podcast seasons. And that's a great way to kind of help you stay up to date on what are we doing with our podcast, what new topics do we have coming up in our episodes, other things that we might be working on. So if you want to join our newsletter, you can visit our website, WWPcast.com/newsletter, and that'll give you all the details on how you can join that free newsletter, which can come to your inbox once a month during the time that we are in our podcast seasons. Again, to join our podcast newsletter, visit our website, WWPCast.com/newsletter. And now we can get back to our show. All right, welcome back to this month's episode of the Work with Purpose podcast. I'm glad that you are joining us here on this month's episode. This month, we're talking through the topic of your skills and abilities, part one. So far, we've covered what are some of the differences of between skills and abilities. I shared with you earlier in this episode, those two words aren't necessarily synonymous. There are some definite, subtleties to those. And so right now, as we kind of keep moving along in this month's episode, I wanted to think about how could I help you kind of apply this thinking about your own skills and abilities, and really thinking about that and trying to give you some examples with some sample jobs and trying to walk through what could be some abilities or some skills with those. So to help you with that, let me pull up my little slides here. Again, as you're watching us on the YouTube version of our show, I do want to remind you on the video version of our show, if you visit our YouTube channel, just search for the Work with Purpose podcast. You can see all of our fancy slides and things like that. On this example job, the one example I wanted to put in front of you for this month's episode, trying to help you thinking about skills and abilities, is the job of customer service representative. So this is more of an entry-level position that can kind of run many different fields, many different industries, and things like that. And the reason I wanted to put this in front of you was to really get you thinking about your skills and abilities and what that might look like for you. So I want to move right on. And on my slides, actually, I mislabeled this. So skills that I would tell you that a customer service representative might bring with them. So skills, more of those processes, procedures that might feel automatic to someone as they are going through, a job like this. Someone with skills. Again, if you're watching the YouTube version, my slides are a little bit mismatched here. But skills that a customer service rep might bring with them. I thought that for a position like this, customer service rep, they might bring knowledge of Windows or Apple operating systems. They might bring more professional phone etiquette skills. Also, in many job openings that I've looked for customer service reps, I know many of those postings also could use. Many companies will ask for experience with web-based chat support, email writing skills as well. So that's can kind of lump together with those professional etiquette skills. Also, someone in a customer service rep role, they might have had some, training, might feel natural. Someone might naturally have computer research abilities or computer research skills, things like that. And also someone might have, be a natural, active listener, some of those like listening to understand types of skills. So those are a couple, again, possible skills that a customer service representative might bring with them to a position like this. And then again, if you're watching the video version of our show, slides are a little bit mismatched here. What I've got on there is abilities that a customer service rep might bring with them. A few abilities that a customer service rep might have. I put on there that somebody who's professionally in that type of job, who might have abilities that they might have been formally trained on or gotten formal experience in, might be internal knowledge of your company's product or service, things like that. Usually those types of things are for folks who are in that type of role. So that internal knowledge, knowledge of your company's policies, procedures, and things like that. Knowledge of if you're a customer service rep, you might have knowledge of your company's phone system or email types of systems. I know many customer service rep roles, they might choose to, their company might choose to work with a vendor for some of those phone systems and things like that. So those could be more internal things. Again, internal abilities. And again, continuing on with abilities, something a little bit more subtle that I wanted to put that somebody might not think is part of a customer service rep role, but that I think could be a really important ability that a customer service rep might have intentional training or development on the job, or things like that, might be growing in their awareness of how you can solve a problem or solve a specific situation with a customer. So a couple examples might be, and I put those on the slides on the video version of our show. Example might be, again, how a customer service rep might be able to solve a situation with a customer. Example one was in X situation, you might know that as a customer service rep, knowing your policies and procedures, you could offer Y solution for that specific role. And then the second example, I put if you were in Z situation, you might know that if you have that Z type of situation with a customer, that based on your company policy, you would need to involve your direct manager just because of the nature of that. So again, I hope you found that helpful as a helpful example of thinking about skills, thinking about abilities for this example job and things like that. So again, I hope that you're finding these examples helpful, thinking about your skills and your abilities with that example job of a customer service representative. But before we kind of keep moving along with our episode, I want to encourage you with this moment to consider taking a little bit of action. And I've got a helpful question that might help you. Really think about, for your current role, what are some of your skills and abilities? What are some of those technology tools or processes that might feel natural to you? What are some of those technology tools, processes, procedures that maybe you've had specific intentional training on? And then for your current role, I really want you to write down and really think about what those top 3 skills, top 3 to top 5 skills and abilities are. Really want you to really name those and really think about those. I'll talk more about why that's helpful. It could be a helpful action step for you at the very end of our episode when we wrap things up. But that will be my encouragement to you. In the next couple of weeks, really think about, for your role, what are your top 3 or top 5 skills and abilities, and really think about those and really try to name those. Okay, so as we keep moving along here on our Work with Purpose podcast episode, I hope you're finding this content helpful and encouraging and practical. That's my goal with every episode that I have a chance to put in front of you guys. I want to make sure that this is relevant and this is giving you practical and encouraging advice, education, and encouragement for your career journey. But as we kind of keep moving along in our episode, I do want to take a quick break here, and I do want to encourage you, if you are finding this information practical and helpful and encouraging for you, I want to invite you to do 2 quick things as we go about this episode. 2 quick things as we go through that. And the first one is, I do want to invite you, if you are connecting with us on your favorite podcast app, I want to invite you to subscribe to our podcast. A couple ways you can do that. You can find us on the YouTube version of our show. Just visit the youtube.com website and search for the Work with Purpose podcast. You can subscribe and follow there. Also, you can connect with our podcast on your favorite podcast app. We're on many, many different podcast apps. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, Podchaser, Audible, lots of different places. So that would be the first thing I would encourage you to do. If you find this content and this podcast helpful, subscribe to our podcast. It's really, really helpful. We appreciate that. And then the second thing I would encourage you is, if you're finding it helpful, regardless of where you subscribe or follow to our podcast, I would invite you to leave a rating or a review of our podcast, asking for, positive, constructive reviews, many, many stars, positive reviews. Those are great. When you leave us a rating or a review, There are many different ways to do that. But when you leave us a rating or a review, what that does, it puts our podcast and this encouraging educational career content in front of new people who might be connecting with us for the first time. So I really would encourage you, leave us a rating or a review. And then to leave a rating or a review, another way to leave a rating or a review, easy way to do that, you can visit our website, wwpcast.com/feedback. And you can visit that webpage to get more specific help on leaving a review, making that as easy as possible for you. All right. And now let's get back to the show. All right, welcome back to this month's episode of the Work with Purpose podcast. This month, we've been talking all about the first part of a two-part series, talking about your skills and your abilities. So far in this episode, I've walked you through what are some of the differences between skills and abilities. How are those words kind of different from each other? I gave you a couple examples of some skills and abilities that might show up in an example job of a customer service representative. But as we get towards the end of this month's episode, I want to put in front of you something new that I'm doing for this podcast season to kind of give you a takeaway for each episode, and that's called the Purposeful Point. All right, so as we wrap up this month's episode, I want to put in front of you something new this season, the Purposeful Point. What that is I wanted to try to distill down what could be one key idea or takeaway or concept or thing to think about from this month's episode. Just because I realize in a lot of our podcast episodes, we might cover a lot of different things, but I wanted to put the Purposeful Point as something new in front of you to really distill down something to encourage you and help you and get you thinking and moving you towards taking some purposeful action about this topic in the weeks and months between now and our next episode. So for this episode, the Purposeful Point that we have and that I wanted to put in front of you is this. As you think about your own career and your own personal, professional growth the next couple weeks and months, a really great place to start is to really assess and understand your skills and your abilities. And when you do that, it can help you see where are you at right now as a professional, and then it can also help you think about what you need to move forward in a positive way. So again, for your own career and personal growth, a great place to start, really, and that's what the whole point of this entire episode, this month's episode, really getting you to think about what are your skills, what are your abilities for your current role, and really naming those, really understanding where you are right now. And that's really important as you think about your career and your professional growth, because when you understand where you are, that can really help you think about what you might need to move forward in a positive way in your career development. All right, so that brings us to the end of this month's episode. That was our Purposeful Point for this month's episode, all about related to your skills and your abilities. And as we get towards the end of this episode, I want to remind you, thank you so much for watching and listening to this month's episode. As we kind of wrap up things here, I do want to remind you, if you find this episode helpful, consider connecting with us, subscribe, and follow us on your favorite podcast app. You can subscribe to the video version of our show on YouTube. Just visit YouTube and search for the Work with Purpose podcast, and you can get the video version of our show as well. Also, you can visit our website, WWPCast.com, and see all of the latest updates for our podcast as well. Again, WWPCast.com. And as we wrap up this month's episode, I want to end this month's episode by reminding you and saying that, again, my name is Randy Mahoney Jr. You've been connecting and listening and watching the Work with Purpose podcast. And as we wrap up this episode, I want to remind you of two quick things. Number one, you've been made with purpose, so work with purpose. And then number two is this. The best work that you can ever do is to serve someone else with your gifts, your skills, and your abilities, and to do all that for the glory of Jesus Christ. I'll see you next time.